Linux operating system hardening. This is a lesson about how you can secure your Linux operating system. Well, there are many different ways that you could secure your operating system so it is not vulnerable to the viruses or attacks or anything that could harm your system. So this is also one of the most important topic in Linux, and many times the recruiters or hiring manager will ask you this question about how do you secure your Linux system or how do you harden your operating system. There are a few many different ways you could, even if you go online, you'll find a lot of different ways. But I think the most basic ones that anyone should really know are as follow. The first one is about the account management. How do you secure the user accounts? What are the policies or standards that you have in place? Then we will cover about remove unwanted packages, all the packages that you have installed in your system. If you don't need them, then why do you keep them? So remove them. Then we have to stop unused services. If a service is running that is not required in your system, stop it, toss it. Check on listening ports. Some of the time we have ports that are listening for traffic, for incoming traffic, but we really don't need any of those incoming traffic. So what do? Stop them. Secure SSH configuration. We'll cover that later. Enable firewall, IP tables, which is the older version, and firewall D in the newer version. Of course, again, we will cover in detail on how we could enable firewall in our system to make our system more secure. SE Linux. SE Linux is a newer feature that we will cover also as part of this lesson. Changing listening services port numbers. So for example, if your port is running on, let's say, SSH 22, you could change it to a different port so the hacker who knows that the port at 22 runs for SSH, when they try it, they'll get refused. Then last but not the least, keep your system up to date. So you should have all the security patches installed. So let's cover them, all of them, one by one. I'll log into the Linux system. So I have here my Linux machine. I'm logged in through the console. So the first thing that we talked about is about user account management. How can we secure that? Well, the first thing that I should include in this is about the naming convention. When you create a username, for example, Oracle or admin, I recommend everyone to not use those standard usernames because it's very easy to predict those usernames. So instead of Oracle, you pick like Oracle 123 or 123 Oracle. Instead of admin, you pick T admin or S admin. So how do we get all the usernames? So you go to etc the password file, and you'll see the listing of all the users that we have in our system. You see here all the first one column before the colon, we have the username like Spider-Man, Spider, that's my name, and many other like NFS, Cronny. So you could change the username to a different name so it's not easily guessed. Another way I would say is by default, when a user is created, when you run the command user add, when you create a user, it automatically assigns a user ID, which usually starts with 3 digits or 4 digits, which is 1000 and so on. So I would also recommend, or as a industry standard, that to use anything from 10,000 and above. So this way it's not hard to guess. Another way is about the password policies. Now, how often your password changes, how long your password should be, all that information can be looked at by running the command chh, which is change age. If you do -L on the username, which is myself, you will see right here, last password change. This is the time when I changed my password. Password expired never. Password inactive. So password expired never, it's not a good sign. Since this is a lab environment, it's for training purposes, I don't really care. But in corporate environment, in production environment, there should be a date to change the password. Same thing goes for inactive password. Account expires. When does the password expires? And number of days of warning before password expires, and so on. All that information can be changed. You could set your own standard depending on your company's requirement. You could run chh command with dash dash help to find more information how you could make those changes for each user. Also, if you go to etc shadow file, you will see permission denied. I have to be root. So if you cat out the etc shadow file, you will see each user has this username, its password. At the end of the password, in this column, it has these numbers. These are the same numbers as we have defined in change age. You could change either with this command, see it change, or you could go directly to the etc shadow file and make the change. We'll see here this 7 refers to this 7, this 999 refers to this 999, this 0 refers to this 0. So you could get more information about how you could change it, whether you could do through the etc shadow or CHA change age. I would prefer that you use change age. Anyway, moving forward, also another file that you should look at is etc login defs. This is the file that you could also define some of the parameters, and those parameters are, let's open the file again, and you will see here maximum password, maximum days. These are the default settings. You could do it by per user basis, or if you want to apply to a default setting, you could use it here. See password minimum length 5. If a user is putting a password length 4, then it's not going to accept it, so it has to be 5. Well, of course, I would recommend go at least 12 or 13 and change it right here. You could also disable all password. Another file that actually manages user accounts and its security is etc pamd, the directory, and the file is system auth. When you look at this file, it has a lot of other parameters that you could define. I want you to spend some time here, or even look it up online and study every field of this file to understand exactly how this file works. Next one we have is about remove unwanted packages, right? So how do we get the listing of all the packages? To get the listing of packages, I think you should know that. If you have forgotten, that's fine. RPM minus keyway, and then you hit enter. When you hit enter, you get the bunch of list of all the packages. Now, how many packages do I have in my system? So that's like a quiz for you. So tell me, how many packages do I have? Well, the command is RPM-QA WC-L, and this will count every line output of RPM QA. I have a total number of packages 1350. So there are so many packages that I really don't need it. So what do we need it for? Well, get rid of them. So to get rid of a package, the command is RPM-E and the package name. So also remember, when you are deleting a package, it will ask you that this package has a dependency on another package. So be very careful on that. If you remove the package and that package has dependencies on another package, or other package has dependencies on this one, you will have some corruption and some programs that won't work properly. So just be careful. Then we have the next one is stop unused services. Okay, how do we get, what are the listing of all the services that we are running? If you run systemctl-a, this will give you everything active or inactive. So if there is a service that is active and you really don't need it, you could just simply stop it. If a system is serving web pages, why do you need NFS service on it, right? So that's why we stop the services. Then the next one we have here is about check on listening ports. Now, how do we check on the listening ports? Every service that you run has a port associated with it. So if you run netstat base dash TUNLP. Why am I picking these specific options? It's just that I've been used to it. You could pick different options to check the ports. So when I hit enter, you will see all the ports that are open and listening right now. See, here's the IP address right here, and this is my local IP, and again this is my local IP, and you'll see everything that after that has these port 111, 53, 22, 631, 25. Tell me what 53 is for. Just a quiz. Well, if you don't remember, 53 is for DNS. And as I said, DNS, what port it runs on, also one of the important questions. So if your machine is not serving as a DNS, why do we have a 53 port running? So stop it. The next one we have is about securing SSH configuration. Now, if you know that when you log into system remotely, what protocol you use SSH, and on the port 22. So this could be secured as well. So if you go to cd/ssh, and then there is a file called sshd config, and when you hit enter or do more on it, you will see this file can be modified, and a lot of its parameters can be modified to make SSH more secure. And what are those things that can be modified? The two basic ones that I usually make changes to is, number one is I change the port. So right now if you see the port is running on 22, I will change it to 1022 or whichever the port that I would like to have, so my system is more secure. Another thing that I like to do whenever I build a system is I go in and I enable this. Right now you see here this one has hash sign. Anything that starts with hash, it's a common. So I will take out this hash sign and I'll say permit root login, and I will say no. Why? Because if I'm logging in, or if anybody's logging into the system as root, it will deny it. They should log in as themselves, and this way they could become your root. The reason behind this is because every time a user logs in, let's say if I log in, my activity will be logged in at the time when I logging in and what time I became root. So all that tracking information will be recorded, and it will be a lot easier to understand who did what to the system. So these are a couple of things I will do with the SSH configuration. Then we have enable firewall. Well, now firewall, as I said, there are older version of firewall that runs in Red Hat 6 and older is called IP tables. The newer version of firewall with 7 and above is firewall D. Both serves the same function. The firewall D has a few enhanced functions. You could look it up again if you want to learn more about firewall. Now I could tell you what firewall does. Firewall, when you have it enabled in your system, what it does is you could filter out, meaning if you want to only accept the traffic that coming in on port 22, you can tell firewall, hey firewall, only accept traffic coming in for port 22, or only accept traffic coming in for port 123 or 53, anything that you want to make the changes to firewall, anything you want the service to be running. So firewall is like a watchdog, it's a defender or a gatekeeper for your system, which allows someone or traffic to come in, and it allows the traffic to leave. The commands that you need to know for firewall is in GUI. In the newer version of Linux, if you are using GUI, you could run firewall -config, hit enter, and you will see it will bring up a GUI. This GUI will let you enable services, lets you enable ports, add ports, remove protocols, or add protocols. If you want to add a port, let's say if you enable firewall on your system, by default it will block everything. So once you enable firewall, it's not going to talk anybody outside, it's not going to have anybody talking to you. So how do you enable the communication, you add the ports. You click on add, you put the port number. Let's say I want everyone to talk to me, and I'm a DNS server, so talk to me with 53. I'm allowing it. That's good. Click OK and good. Perfect. So that's how the firewall or IP table works in a newer system and that has GUI. What if I do not have a GUI? Okay, for that there's another command for a text-based or command line command, which is firewall-cmd, which is for command. And when you do help, you'll get a lot of information. How do you find, or how do you query, or how do you remove a port? In older version, we have the command IP tables. So when you hit IT tables, you could just do help and you'll see all the information that you have right now. If you enable the IP services and then you run IP tables -list, it will list all the services. Anyway, the configuration file for IP tables, the older version is etc sysconfig IP, and in the sysconfig the file is IP tables config, and this is the file where you could go in and modify it. If you don't want to modify through the command line, you can modify through the file and then restart the services. In the newer version, the file name is etc firewall d. etc firewall d is the directory, and the firewall is firewalld.conf. This is the one that you can modify. Then we'll move on to the next one about securing our system, which is enable SE Linux. Now, what is SE Linux? Now, let me read you something really off the internet, our standard definition of SE Linux. SE Linux stands for Security Enhanced Linux. Is a security architecture integrated into the 2.6x kernel using the Linux Security Module, also known as LSM. It is a project of the United States National Security Agency, which stands for NSA, or which is abbreviated as NSA, and the SE Linux community. SE Linux integration into Red Hat Linux Enterprise was a joint effort between the NSA and the Red Hat. SE Linux defines the access and transition rights of every user, every application, process, and on a file the system is on. So we have if you know, every operating system has an application, it has a process, it has a file, it has a user, right? So we have talked about the user permissions, and how do we change it? We change it to the change mod, right? Now, how do we change the permission of a process? How do we change the permission of an application, right? Well, that's not possible with the operating system. So what we did, we have this SE Linux which controls the access, the permission access of process and application, and it goes deep down in the detail and control every access of the file. The configuration file, if you want to make SE Linux enable, the first thing you have to do is run SE status to make sure if it's running or not. And if you do SE status, you see in my system SE Linux status is enabled. Now, a lot of companies that I have worked in the past, and a lot of people that I've talked to, they usually keep SE Linux disabled, which I understand, because many times their computers or their environment running in a private network, so they really don't need it. Plus, SE Linux is a very newer technology, and it is a bit complicated when implemented into your system. So you have to have a very detailed and better understanding for SE Linux. So if you wanted to disable it, all you have to do is go to etc sysconfig, and you do vi. I'm just doing more for now, and you will see right here. Let me clear the screen so there won't be any confusion when you look at it. So you see right here, anything that has hash signs is of course is common. So you see right here it says SC Linux equal enforcing. It means it is enforced and it's enabled. And there are three modes of SC Linux. One is enforcing, which means the SC Linux security policy is enforced, right? Then the second is permissive, which is telling that the SC Linux system prints warning but does not enforce policies. So if someone is making any changes, it will print, hey, something is going on, but it's not going to stop it. Then there's another one, is the last one is of course is the disabled, of course, which disables the SC Linux. So you could change it here, and once you have it, it is recommended that you reboot your system. So to check the parameters of a file, for example, let's say if I go to my home directory, and these are the file and directories I have. So if I just do status, or just stat, and I do, let's say I have this file called La La Land, you will see right here it tells me everything about that file, the file's name, the size, the block, the IO block, and right here it says access, which is read write, execute write. We already covered that, and if not, then you already know that it is like it could be defined with change mod command. Now if you notice right here, this is a new thing, context. So this specific file is defined with the object is user home. So that's how the SC Linux keep track of which directory belongs to which user or which file. And it also gives you access, modify, birth, change, and all that different information. We could change only the read, write, and execute, right? But all that additional stuff, if you wanted to have it, that could be done with SC Linux. Anyway, there are other commands that I want you to look into it, which I will not cover here, which is because SC Linux is a huge topic. Just for your knowledge, or to have you have a somewhat of exposure, that you should know what SC Linux is. So anyway, some of the command of SC Linux is chcon, which change file SC Linux security context. Then we have check policy, which is SC Linux policy compiler, and the other ones are new role, set SC bool, set SC bool, fix files, SC manage, and so many other commands that I will not cover here. Also, I have attached some documentation which you could read. So this is about SC Linux. Now this second to the last part that I wanted to cover is about change listing service port numbers. Now also I covered that a little bit on the in SSH configuration, where you could change from port 22 to a different port. You could also make the same change to other services. For example, DNS by default on 53, right? You could make that changes as well to make your system more secure. And the last one is about keep your operating system up to date. Now it doesn't mean you just go online and do yum update all and just update everything, all the packages that you have. You don't have to do, or you don't have to update every package, but you do have to make sure, especially anything that is related to security, you have to update. And how do we keep on up to date with the security? Well, one thing is you keep on running this yum update, it'll update it, right? But is it the right way to do it? Well, what I do, I could tell you, is I keep myself up to date with all the alerts that I get from Red Hat or CentOS or even Windows. Every time there is an issue or there's a new patch that comes out, I get notified. I have an email. So I would recommend you to do the same. Go ahead and sign up on redhat.com, on centos.org. As soon as you get any of those updates, go ahead and apply it. That's how you keep your system secure. Anyway, this is about how you could do your system secure or OS hardening. If you cover everything here in detail, and if someone is asking you questions, trust me, you're gonna ace it if you go over this. All right, good luck.